family-owned shop in Loganville, Soesby's Garage for all your automotive repair needs. We service all makes and models, foreign and domestic. We repair engines, alternators, brakes, alignments, AC systems, and more, using certified technicians with over 90 years of combined experience. We also offer same-day service for some repairs. Soesby's Garage, 200 Bay Creek Road in Loganville. Dependable, honest, and fair. Look us up on Google or Facebook. We'll take good care of you.
Broadcasting live from the Subaru of Gwinnett studio inside the Sonesta Gwinnett Place Atlanta Hotel. It's time for Case in Point, presented by Paradigm Security Services. We are the cornerstone of security in the Southeast.
Hey everybody, welcome to Case in Point, presented by Paradigm Security Services, partially brought to you by Soesby's Garage in Loganville, Georgia. Give John a call and let him take care of your vehicles. He'll do a great job. I'm your host, Rick Strawn, the president of Paradigm Security Services, and we are excited to be with you again today on Business RadioX. We're coming to you from the Subaru of Gwinnett studio, located in the beautiful Sonesta Gwinnett Place Atlanta Hotel in Duluth, Georgia. Each week we plan to feature, as you know, businesses in the Atlanta area, especially those that serve Gwinnett County. And while businesses all have security concerns, not all are about physical security, and we'll touch on that and all aspects of security through the course of each show. Our guest today, I am very happy to have Linnea Miller. She is with the city of Suwanee. She's a council person. She has councilmen, but I'll just go ahead and be politically correct and say council person.
All right.
But she is on the city of Suwanee council. And not only that, she's very active and got her finger on the pulse of just about everything going on in Gwinnett County. She's extremely active. Every time you turn around, you're seeing her somewhere, and she's going 90 miles an hour like Ricochet Rabbit. Boy,
yeah.
she's moving. But, happy to have you. I usually start off with the one question, and that is, who is Linnea Miller? I mean, where'd you come from? How'd you get here? And how'd you get to doing what you're doing?
Oh, thanks, Rick. It's a pleasure to be here. It really is. And I actually hail from the wonderful city of Grand Rapids, Michigan. That's where I was born and raised and met my husband. And actually, this Gwinnett Place area, and some folks in Gwinnett have heard my Gwinnett story, but this Gwinnett Place area is part of the reason why in 1998, my young family at the time moved here with our two little kids. We had a 2-year-old and a 5-month-old, and we were on our way back from Florida, and some friends were building a house up at the Hamilton Mill, which was at the time the Street of Dreams in 1998.
Absolutely.
And they said, come out and check our house. It's under construction. And back in the day, we didn't realize that going up 85 was a very different route than 75 on our way back driving from Florida to Michigan. So we got off, we stopped off at the Gwinnett Place Mall exit to have some lunch, and I think it was the first week of March, and there were daffodils blooming and the red buds and birds. It was beautiful, and we were getting ready to head back home to a couple more months of winter in Michigan. And
that's enough to get anybody to move south.
That's what it is. We were like, this place is wonderful. We saw the beautiful Gwinnett Place Mall at the time and all of the wonderful things about this community, and we said we should move here, and that's exactly what we did. A couple of months later, we brought our family here, and we looked for homes and kept moving until our realtor suggested a place in Suwanee, Georgia. I'd never heard of Suwanee. There really wasn't a lot there in 1998, but that's where we could afford to live. We couldn't afford Alpharetta and Duluth and some of
Hamilton
these other
Mill.
Right, and so
totally get that.
So we found a house in Suwanee, and we are still in that same home 21 years later, and been married to my husband for 25 years. We have 4 children that are now much older. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful life that we have created here. And we have really grown up with this community. And I think that that's why I care about it so much. This community helped to raise us and our family.
Well, it's an awesome community. I know we moved in our house. We're on the we're in the unincorporated, but our address is Suwanee.
You can always fix that.
32 years ago.
Move a little bit a
Well,
little bit
I'd
into
rather
the
they
city
moved
limits.
the city limits out and took me in because we've been there for 30-something years.
Okay,
So,
yeah.
and my wife, you're not pulling her up. Our kids and grandkids are right around the corner.
Yes,
so, yeah.
yes, I hear you.
I can't.
hear
I'll
you.
never get out of that house.
I hear you.
You've been so active, and there's so much stuff going on in our county. We can talk about anything that you want to talk about, but I know that you're on the city council, and I know the city of Suwanee is one of the first suburban communities to really embrace the idea of creating public spaces.
Sure.
Of course, we have town center that everybody's just. It's an awesome place. Where did all this start in Suwanee? What got it kicked off? How did it get going?
Yeah. Well, it really did begin with creating parks and green spaces. And we like to joke and say that it all began with a bond referendum. So in 2001, again, my family had been here for a few years at the time, but the city of Suwanee had conducted an open space and recreation needs assessment. And the citizens of Suwanee later that year turned out in record numbers to vote in favor of a multi-million-dollar bond referendum that allowed the city to purchase land specifically for the purposes of being able to expand our green spaces and really to create a place. I think that at the time, the suburbs didn't really have a lot of identity. They were just extensions of Atlanta or of another area. So the community came out strongly and said, we want to have an identity and we want to have a place. And so at the time, the city of Suwanee had about 9 acres of dedicated green space. The city, because of this bond referendum, was able to purchase 370 acres. And that is what we have now in the city of Suwanee. We have 10 square miles, and in that 10 square miles, in addition to the 370 acres of city-owned dedicated open space and green space, Gwinnett County actually has George Pierce Park, which is in the city limits as well, which contributes, I think, about the same amount. So we are close to 800 acres of open space, dedicated green space in the city of Suwanee. And I'm just really proud of that because it really is the envy of most any community in the U.S. to have that much dedicated
anytime
green
you
space.
talk about some of our other local cities that are doing the same thing,
Yeah.
it's just that. They talk about we want something that looks like comparable or we want to do better than what Suwanee has done.
Yes.
It's the thing that's just sitting out there that everybody wants to be like. I know for a city that's as small as Suwanee is, when you really look at the total area of it, to have that much green space that's dedicated specifically within the limits, it's really a lot bigger when you put it in perspective than it sounds.
Sure.
And it sounds pretty big.
It really is, and I think that the reason why that is incredibly important is because we do want places where people can gather together, where people can feel like they belong. I'm a big believer in connecting people to people and people to their place. And I think that when you're creating physical spaces, public spaces that are accessible, that can be programmed in ways that help people feel like they belong there, that they have a part to play in the development, in the welfare of their community. They make memories and they create a home, just like I was talking about with my family, and I'm sure your family as well, being in the community. It's where your Christmas photos are taken, and it's where you do volunteer projects, and you may be in the parade one year, and all of these things accumulate and really become the story of your life. So that's what's so great about what all the cities are doing. They're doing such a great job at leveraging their own unique characteristics and qualities and building on that and building around the identity and really making their communities proud, I think.
Well, Suwanee has done just a fantastic job of doing that. We talked earlier before we went on the air about communication, and it's the ability for the city to communicate to their residents that they're home, and for the residents to be able to communicate with the city. And then you get into a place, for instance, like the town center, where they have some big activity going on, a fair or a play or a movie or whatever's going on, and people come around, they begin to communicate, and it becomes a neighborhood.
Yes.
Whereas it's not just Suwanee, or
That's
it's not
right.
just Norcross, it's not just Duluth, it's home. And that makes so much of a difference.
Definitely does. And, our town center really is the physical and symbolic heart of the Suwanee community, draws over 200,000 visitors. We have over 40 events every year, and so there's always something going on there. And that's really was the place where we started as far as that placemaking aspect of it. And we had to look at what are the tools in the toolbox to be able to help facilitate and create that space. And in Suwanee, public art actually emerged as a big part of answering that question.
Well, and that brings us up to my next question is, how did that evolve into Suwanee's public art initiative?
Sure. Well, legend has it that former Mayor Nick Messino said that all great cities have public art. And at the time when he was the mayor, he actually wanted the community to explore the idea of what does public art look like in this community. Does it have a place? And so an ad hoc committee was created in 2007 to actually explore that question, and I was actually a part of that ad hoc committee.
With your interest in arts, it's no surprise.
Yes, and really that was the gateway for my participation in my community in a broader way than all of the things that we had been participating before, of course, with my children and going to the parks and being in the parades and the events and all that we did. We even did a lot of volunteer things in the community with my children when they were young. But this was the first formal way that I was actually asked to participate, and I had no idea where it would lead me, but I'm so grateful. So,
well, I know that it also in 2011 the commission launched a sculpt tour. Tell me a little bit about that. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So the Sculpt Tour was an initiative that came out of that committee, actually turned into the Public Arts Commission, which was appointed by the council. And that was for the purpose of promoting public arts as a means of enhancing residents' quality of life, as well as creating colorful, unique sense of identity, like we were talking about earlier. So I served on the Public Art Commission as well, and I chaired that for several years. And in the early days, the commission's efforts began with implementing a public art policy, where we encouraged developers to voluntarily use 1% of their development costs to incorporate public art into the community. So we decided to use a carrot versus a stick approach, meaning that it was a voluntary contribution. And the only thing that we required of the developers was that they would meet with the Public Art Commission to be able to as their process of getting their permits signed off and everything. Just hear the presentation, because our appeal was, you want to be in this community for a reason. We want you to be more than just to build a building or even a business. We want you to be a stakeholder. We want you to be a partner. So as part of that, the city of Suwanee knew we need to put our money where our mouth is, per se, and we at the time were building our city hall. And so we actually took 1% of our development cost and did the city's first public art project in the new City Hall building. And you could see it. It's in the lobby if you were to go into City Hall today.
I've seen it. It is awesome.
Isn't it stunning? Yes. There was an artist. Her name is Corinne Rolstad, and she's based out of Seattle. And she came and spent a lot of time here in the city. And that was just a blast, working through that process with her and being a part of that. And then when we built our police substation, public art was a part of that at the 1% level. And the same thing we're now working on a court expansion project, and public art will also be incorporated into that. So we want to make sure that we're leading by example. And
is that where that interesting little statue came out in front of it?
Yes, absolutely. It is. So, and then the Sculpt Tour. So the Sculpt Tour was the way that the city could start programming art. So we had decided pretty early on, that we weren't going to use taxpayer money to pay for art. That we thought that, again, we wanted to invite the stakeholders in the community, whether it was the businesses, whether it was new development, whether it was the community itself, private donations. We just want to invite everyone to be a part of it. So what we did is we started with something. We actually, our favorite type of R&D is actually rip off and duplicate. So our council made a trip to Columbus, Georgia at the time. And again, this was back in 2010, 2011. And we saw that they were doing a program that was very similar to what is now our Sculpture program. And that's where they basically we would put out an RFP proposal to artists, and they would send in submissions, and we would pay them for art on loan. So they would get a stipend to be able to loan us their art for a period of 22 months. So the Sculpture program, it was fantastic because it allowed us to be able to start implementing, for the community to start seeing what art looked like on a temporary basis. And then
it gives you that, it doesn't get stale, it changes.
It always changes, and it's dynamic. And I remember even in the first few years, sometimes we would have certain citizens, they're like, well, I don't like that one sculpture, or that's not my style. And we said, that's okay, because
stick around, it'll change.
It'll change.
It's like
it'll
the weather.
change, and you might like one and maybe not another, but it'll change. And so it started getting art into the public realm, which is where we wanted to see it happen. And it was a way for artists to actually have their works on display. And it was in the time when the Great Recession hit, actually. So a lot of development had really almost come to a halt.
And there wasn't any spending on art and stuff like that.
There was
back
not
then.
spending
on art. It was everything
art.
cut into the bone.
That's right. And yet that is when our Sculpture program just started growing. And I feel like it became almost more important than ever, because people were very concerned about what was going to happen to our communities, and yet we could rally around something that was very positive. And we realized that it really started to become part of how people associated their connection and their identity with their community.
Well, how does this all fold into the Suwanee 2020 vision plan?
Yeah, so the Suwanee 2020 vision plan was actually, so here we are on the door of 2020, right?
Exactly.
And a couple of days, I think I heard 45 days or something. It's 49 days.
I try to put all that on my head.
So that plan was actually adopted in 2012. And so we just finished adopting actually our 2040 plan earlier this year. So in 2020, though, as we engaged the community really said public art needs to be a part of our identity, and we need to formalize that. We need to continue to grow that because our community is very proud of it. And this was from the citizen feedback. So then we took it to the next level, and the city adopted a public art master plan, and that was in 2015. And that master plan helped us to kind of formalize that process and that identity, as well as building on the momentum. It helped us to actually have some plans covering everything from maintenance to where do we go from here.
Well, we've already talked about how the art's paid for, and I think that is just an awesome approach to it. And, I know the Sculpture costs approximately $50,000, and it's awesome that you're able to cover all that through not necessarily just throwing tax money in there.
That's right.
I mean, it's great. That way
That's right.
people get the benefit, but they don't necessarily all have to pay for it, feel like they've been just,
Sure.
I don't like it, but I had to pay for it.
Sure. Now, we do spend city money on staff time and some hard costs when we have to make sure things are safe. With our sculptures, we may need to, fix a base or, that the sculpture's sitting on, or things of that nature.
Well, don't forget, if you ever need security around there, you don't have to pay those high police off-time payroll costs. You have Paradigm Security that can help you.
That's it. Security is important.
Yes, it is. It's very important because, with today's society, you never know what's going to happen or what you have to do. So you always have to be careful and at least make sure that everything is covered and everything's safe.
That's right.
And that's what we do.
And those are some of the things that are addressed in our public art master plan as well, is how do we address the security, the safety, both for the public as well as for the art itself. So,
well, y'all just need to contact Paradigm Security Services at 1-800.
I'll let our staff know.
No, but and I know we did the Rembrandt that they had at the Hudgens a few years ago.
Yeah.
My major, that was her first assignment when she came on. She was there. She did the security at the Rembrandt.
The Hudgens Art Center is just such a gem for Gwinnett County.
Well, it's just one of those things. It may not be in Suwanee, but it is one of those things that helps to promote. What you do helps to promote Hudgens, and what Hudgens does helps to promote what you're doing.
Absolutely.
So it's a great time.
Yeah, and that's intentional. I mean, we really do whether it is another city, whether it's organizations like the Hudgens Center for the Arts or the Aurora Theater, we actually informally support each other.
Absolutely.
But sometimes we formally support each other as well. So, we had the Aurora Theater came out and did a production in the city of Suwanee in our park. And so again, that's very symbiotic, all these relationships. And Artworks Gwinnett is another part of
Well, one of the best things about artwork is that it is a grassroots, it is part of the soul.
Sure.
And it is part of you. And when you're looking at it and you get everybody involved, it's something that even if you don't maybe like the production, you love to watch the people do it.
That's right.
It's amazing what people can do. And then the artwork's the same way. I would love to paint this or that, but somebody can do it. It's motivated a lot of people to take it on and learn to do stuff that's different, and it just gives you that homey feel.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, how has the public art transformed the Suwanee community?
Man, we really...
Where do you start?
Yeah, where do we start? I mean, again, if you kind of going back to that question that Nick Messino said many years ago, which is that great cities are great. They're inextricably linked to their art. Cities like New Orleans with their jazz and Chicago with the bean. And these are great places. I just got back from Europe. I was celebrating my 25th wedding anniversary with my husband.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. And there is art everywhere, and it's part of the fabric. And so I think that is what we have started to grow and to develop in the city of Suwanee. And, I just think that public art, that in the public realm for the whole of the community, is an integral part of our overall strategy. It is the one of the best ways to help people feel like they have a common language to speak, because it doesn't matter what your background is, it doesn't matter where you come from culturally, or where you grew up, or what age you are, whether you're a senior or a child. You can stand around an art experience or participate in an art experience, and you can feel connected around that.
Well, every child loves to play with the coloring book and the colors and draw, and some of them go on to be artists, some of them go on to be something else, but there's a little artist in every one of us.
I agree. I actually think that creativity is core to who we are as people. We just all express it differently.
It's part of what makes us different.
Yeah.
We can express it like that. We don't go out and scrape the ground. We can go out and actually draw something.
That's right. That's right. Some can draw better than others, and I am not one of the ones that you would want to see my drawing.
I love drawing. I've been drawing since I was a kid.
Really?
Done a few paintings, but not anything recent. Haven't had time.
Well, you're going to have to get back to it.
Yeah, I would love to. If I ever find an opportunity to retire, I'd like to go back to painting.
Yeah. Well, then that all comes back to security, right?
Yep.
So the better you can do there, then you can get back to your painting.
That's right. The more people like Suwanee, communities like Suwanee, and people like you that call Paradigm Security, we build our business. Somebody comes in, pays me multi-million for it, and then I'll go retire.
Then you can go retire. And you know what? You can join the North Gwinnett Arts Association. They're a great collaborative of artists right in the city.
Absolutely.
And they'll put you to work.
I'll just go out to pasture and do nothing but paint art. It sounds like heaven. I guess as a resident and a city councilwoman, why are you so interested in public art? I mean, there's a lot of people that, that's nice, but you really have a passion for it. Mm-hmm. And it is so much, shows so much. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's great, because I think I said this earlier, but my mission is really to connect people to people and people to their place. And there are so many different ways that we can do that. There's so many different tools in the toolbox, right? So public art is just one of those tools, and it's the tool that really got me truly to where I am today. It's the thing that made me fall in love with my community. There's an author, his name is Peter Kageyama, and he wrote a book called For the Love of Cities. And he has this quote that I love. It says, "As cities begin to think of themselves as being engaged in a relationship with their citizens, and citizens begin to consider their emotional connections with their places, we open up new possibilities. to me, public art unlocks those possibilities. It is a critical tool in that toolkit of building and fostering a better connected relationship between citizens and their city. It has the power to create beauty and induce moments of joy, and it even causes people to fall in love with their city. And that's what happened to me. So from the very early days of this ad hoc committee that I was involved with, and then the Public Art Commission, and then running for office, and now in my 6th year as a councilwoman for the city of Suwanee, I truly have fallen in love with this community, and public art set the stage for that. So that's why you hear the passion, because it really led me to where I am today.
Well, let's see, did you just have an election this time?
I did not.
I was thinking that you
I
weren't.
did not. I have in 2 more years.
2 more years.
Yes.
Well, you know, you're so involved in the public and so involved in doing things. You know, I guess the next question would be, what is next? And not just with the city, but with Linnea.
Oh.
You looking at, are you going to run for anything else as it moves along? Or are you looking at, and I know this one you're not prepared for because you didn't know this was coming.
You're tricky.
But I just thought I'd just see if you were, that thought was ever in your mind about maybe running for something else with our county.
I will tell you that it is been one of the greatest honors of my life that the public has chosen to trust me to be a part of
You're so damn
the
likable.
team. Well, listen, we have the best team. I mean, whether it's my colleagues that are on the council with me, our mayor, he is a great friend and mentor and loves this community. Our staff,
Absolutely.
We have the best staff, and if any other cities are listening, you are not allowed to have any of them because they are the best. And our community. So it truly is an honor. Every single day, I take it very seriously. I try to do my best to make the community proud, and I try to, just like our whole team does, we try to keep the community's best interests at heart. And I have no plans to run anywhere else for anything else because I truly love what I'm doing, and I truly love the community. Now, I do love Gwinnett County, and I love this region. I mean, I've been so fortunate to be able to forge partnerships and great relationships with people all over. I mean, I had the privilege of being able to participate in Regional Leadership Institute, which is a group through the Atlanta Regional Commission where they bring leaders from all over Metro Atlanta together. I am very involved with Leadership Gwinnett. It is just, I call them my Gwinnett family. They are. And, I know class of 2016, best class ever. You and I can fight about that.
2014.
That's right. And so Leadership Gwinnett is just an incredible organization that we are so grateful to have in this community. And so whether we're doing things through those great organizations or we're tackling difficult issues in our community, I think it's important for us to show up and participate and engage and be able to model for folks what it looks like to be able to come together and try to solve problems together. So, currently I have been asked to serve on a committee that we're talking about transit and what does that look like. As we know, we had a referendum that failed earlier this year, and so, where do we go from here? We don't abdicate our responsibility to figure out how to solve problems for people. So we got to dig in.
And it is a problem.
Yeah.
It is a problem. We have to do something, but we don't want to do the wrong thing. And it's like I told you before we ever came on, that, I have gone from a very big opponent, having worked with the city of Atlanta for 25 years and seeing a lot of the background with it, Marta, as they were coming up, to a proponent of something happening, and I have no problem with it being connected with Marta now. I've seen the change. I've seen the good, I've seen the bad, and I've seen the ugly.
Sure.
Right now, the change is good, and I think it's something that can really benefit us. If we don't do something, it's going to hurt us.
Sure. Well, I know there are some good folks that are working really hard to try to tackle these issues, both at MARTA, in the county, and beyond. I mean, again, these are topics that have regional impact on all of us, and mobility is important to all of us. going back to the connection piece for me. I mean, we're talking physical connections here, and how do we have the right kind of infrastructure that addresses the realities of where we are today and where we're going. And the reality is we live in a county with 1 million people. We're growing
and
to
it's going to be bigger.
That's right. In the next 20 years, we're looking at being at 1.4 million people. Again, part of a metro region that is growing we're at 5 million, and we're growing beyond that, well beyond that. So we have to address those realities. We also have an aging population. I mean, it's kind of sobering when you think about sobering, only because I realize I'm going to be part of that in the next 30 years. In the next 30 years, almost 20% of our community are going to be age 70 and older. So that's going to impact a lot of
For
things.
some of it, it's going to be a lot quicker than that.
So we have to think of the implications. I'm all about just like how do we address what is the realities around us, and how do we begin starting to solve problems, not championing our own personal interests, but how do we work together with people? I mean, it is very appropriate, frankly, for people of goodwill to have disparate ideas on how to solve complex problems. If they were easy, they would be solved by now.
Oh, absolutely.
But they're not easy, which is why it takes a lot of people coming together. And so we've got to learn how to have conversation again. I think that's what this committee is trying to do.
You need to open your mind.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of closed minds.
That's right.
It has a tendency to be the older people that have been here forever and ever.
Sure.
And I've been here for a long time. And, I'm one of those people that I'm not real fond of change a lot of times. Mm-hmm. But you also have to back up and look at the reality of it. And I love my county, but Gwinnett is a regional partner. It's not just all about Gwinnett. We have to expand and look at how do we work with others. How do we all play in the sandbox?
That's right.
We got to do it.
Right.
So it's a matter of keeping an open mind and seeing. Don't let perception be your reality. Let your reality, kind of open up a little bit and see what's really there.
And lean in at the very least. I believe we can lean in with some curiosity when people do have different ideas, and we may not need to agree with them, but I think that we can start by being curious and being respectful. And so that will cover a whole lot, even beyond whether the topic is transit or anything else. That will go a long way to solve problems, I think, in this world, and just appreciating the contribution that people are trying to bring. We really do all want to be a small part of something greater than us, and a part of something that is good. And I think that when we really approach people and try to bring that contribution out from them, that they can come alive. I know that with me, when I was asked again to serve on that ad hoc committee so many years ago, I never would have imagined that I'd have the opportunities that I have today, but somebody saw something in me. They asked me to bring a tiny little contribution, and here I am today trying to make tiny little contributions as part of a greater whole. And so I think that we need to also start asking people around us to just jump in. Will you participate? And maybe that's what we can do on this show today, Rick, is whoever's listening, we can say, here's an invitation. It is your invitation to participate in whatever makes you come alive, whether it's public art, whether you're interested in transit, whether you're interested in, any number of things that we are trying to tackle as a community. Just participate, get involved. Do something, and do it in a way that's constructive.
Positive. Yep.
That's right. And don't just hide behind your keyboard and complain or spread rumors on certain platforms. Just really show up and get to know your neighbors and solve problems with them, and you will make a lot of friends. And
we said before, communication is the key.
That's right.
And everybody needs to learn to communicate a little bit with each other, if not a lot with each other, and kind of, like I say, open up your mind and just be willing to say, I love my county, I want what's best for my county, but what is really best for my county? Let's take an honest look at it.
Sure. And you talked about, of course, Paradigm Security has been your passion because you care about that, and your business is a part of the greater whole, solving problems in the community. And
Absolutely.
you talk about communication, and then that's what my business. I have a consulting firm called Long Table, and we are doing actually an event on Friday, November 22nd, called Long Table Leadership Forum. And you can check my Facebook page out for information on that. But that is going to be an event where we do bring people together. We tackle communication. We help people learn what it looks like to grow our own leadership, how other people experience us, and how do we actually bring a contribution out of other people, help facilitate that in a way that liberates those people and brings the best out of them so that we can solve problems together for our businesses and beyond. So.
Well, I tell you, I could talk with you for another hour. There's so much more that we could talk about, but we're coming to the end here. Let me ask you this. If somebody wants to get in touch with you for the arts or for Suwanee or for Long Table, I think that your Facebook page is important, because I think people really need to take a look at that and see how can they get involved.
Sure. So it's kind of funny because I actually have 3 Facebook pages. I have one for Long Table, I have my personal one, and I have one for the city of Suwanee. So, yep, Facebook, you're going to find me for sure. You can also find me at Linnea at longtableconsulting.com. You can find me on Instagram under Miller Team. You can find me on the city of Suwanee's website, and that's a great resource if you want to find out about public art and what's next. And we've got some really great things that we are getting ready to do. We're continuing the public art movement, as I'll coin that right now, the public art movement. And I don't want to go into a lot of it because I know that next you're going to have my friend Sheila Crumrine come on and tell you about a big initiative that we have coming up with that. So
that's going to be an interesting show too. That's next week, folks. You don't want to miss it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's been great. There's so much going on, and of course, with all the little teasers that you just put out, the journey continues.
We could do a show on each one, huh?
Absolutely.
Each topic.
that would not be a problem. And I just want to put a little quick plug in here for my sponsor, who is Soulsby's Garage. We service all makes and models, foreign and domestic. And some of their services include air conditioning systems, brakes, alternators, engines, and alignments, and about anything else that you can think of. And the best part about it is it's nice to find an honest person. So go check out Soulsby's Garage at 200 Bay Creek Road in Loganville, Georgia, 678-825-2127. And tell Big John that Rick said come by and see you. So, again, I want to thank you, Linnea, for being on. And thank you to all of you for joining me on Case in Point, presented by Paradigm Security Services. Remember, you can join us live every Wednesday at 11:30 in the morning, or you can listen to our show anytime you want by going to Business RadioX.com, clicking on Gwinnett Studio, and then click on Case in Point. I'll get that out in a minute. Join us next week at 11:30 when we will talk to business leaders about their businesses, and especially about the arts programs that are going on here in our county. And thanks again to my guest. My mouth is not working right today.
Thank you.
But and for our producer, Mike, and I am Rick Strawn. And remember, at Paradigm Security Services, we cover more than just your assets.